Yo, what's up? My name's Patrouski, and welcome to my in-depth shiny hunting guide for PokeMMO. Shiny hunting is my absolute favorite thing to do in PokeMMO, and it can shockingly be complex for something you would assume is just run back and forth until you see a sparkle in a different colored virtual monster. I also firmly believe that PokeMMO is the best Pokemon game for shiny hunting due to its 1 out of 30,000 shiny rate, which may scare off many players, but will also excite the players who are brave enough to attempt rare shiny hunts within this game. I personally have around 9,000 hours within PokeMMO if you include alt accounts, a large majority of which have been spent shiny hunting, and currently have around 45 OT shinies within PokeMMO. If you don't know, OT just stands for Original Trader, which means you're the person who caught it, which is extremely valued and extremely important within PokeMMO. You see, having an OT shiny means that you put in the hours, you put in the effort, and you put in the work to get that shiny, whereas simply credit card swiping, buying some RP, aka the premium currency, and then buying a shiny off the GTL doesn't confirm that you put in that work. Now, there's nothing wrong with non-OT shiny collecting. If that's something you want to do, I would really like to encourage it. I think going to collect your own Pokeyen and then buying a shiny is really cool if you want to do it like that. However, keep in mind, OT shinies and non-OT shinies are looked at in different ways by the community, and it should be really important to know that. OT shiny Pokemon are much more respected and much more revered because there is no getting around the fact that you must have worked hard for it, which I think is a beautiful system that most other Pokemon games don't really have in this regard. Caring about how much time and effort someone put into get an achievement is something most humans care about, and it's important to have a system that represents that integrity which exists within PokeMMO. As you could probably tell, this is going to be a very long and in-depth video. If you're only looking for one subject or one talking point, feel free to use the timestamps on the video. And before we start, I have a quick vocab lesson for you guys. Shunter/shunting equals shiny hunter or shiny hunting. Shalpha equals shiny alpha. Egging means making eggs for a rare shiny Pokemon. Hoarding/hordes equals groups of either 3 to 5 Pokemon, usually summoned with the sweet scent move. Phase is a shiny that you got on the way to your target shiny. So for example, if you were single encountering hunting for Shroomish, Trico, or Slackoth at Petalburg Woods, every Pokeyen and Tailo you get on the way is generally seen as a phase, as they are less desired shinies that you passively get on the way to your main goal. Hopefully this clears a few things up for the rest of the video. Thanks for watching. Hey, post-edit Patrouski here. I was so invested in trying to teach you guys how to shiny hunt that I kind of forgot to chill my channel a little bit, so I had to include this. If you find this video helpful, make sure to like it. It really does just help me out tremendously with all the time and effort I put into this video, and if you want to see more like it, subscribe. If this video wasn't helpful to you, feel free to dislike, and if you don't want to see more PokeMMO content, feel free to unsubscribe or not subscribe. Thus concludes our intro and main premise. Let's go ahead and jump into the things that you'll actually need to shiny hunt. Number 1 is going to be some sort of catching Pokemon so you're able to safely secure that shiny Pokemon for when you finally encounter it. The main 3 that I'm aware of that most people use are going to include Breloom, Parasect, and Smeargle. These all come for different reasons and offer different utilities. You can't really go wrong with any of these 3. They're all going to have their own strengths and weaknesses. I think the all-around best catcher is going to end up being Breloom just because he has some of the best stats in terms of his base attack and base speed. So he'll really help you with those high-level hordes, and he'll get away with a ton of stuff with Toxic Orb and Poison Heal as well, preventing him from becoming paralyzed and burned or status in other ways, while also giving him a lot of sustain and heal, allowing him to kind of permanently spam substitutes and spores and really stick around in most battles for a very long time. The main 2 moves you're going to want on any catching Pokemon is going to be Spore and False Swipe. These 2 things are going to allow you to hit your Pokemon down to exactly 1 HP and then go ahead and Spore it to put it to sleep to safely catch it with whatever Pokeball you want to use. We'll talk about this in more depth later, but it's really important to keep in mind you don't actually want to false swipe every Pokemon. Certain Pokemon, like shinies, are going to know things like Takedown. A good example is Shiny Rapidash, and that's going to take recoil damage, and you might end up killing your shiny, which is one of the number 1 things you want to avoid. You also have Parasect, which has a damp ability baked in, so if you're around rock-type Pokemon, you're hunting within a cave, or you're around Pokemon with Self-Destruct or Explosion, damp is going to be absolutely crucial. And then you have your Smeargle, which can learn Sweet Scent on the Pokemon itself, which is nice. It can also learn whatever move you want it to. It's Smeargle. It can also learn the utility move Soak, which helps with catching for netballs, and also can turn grass types into water types, or turn ghost types into water types, which allows you to false swipe normally ghost types, or spore grass types, which would usually be immune to spore. I wouldn't worry about overthinking the IVs and EVs on these Pokemon. Obviously, the better the IVs and EVs and such, the stats, they can help, but looking at my Smeargle over here, it's 16 attack IV with a calm nature. It doesn't have to be amazing, perfect like this Parasect. This Breloom I've been using since 2021 for the last 3 years now. It's hasty nature, it's 20 plus attack, 20 plus speed. It's good enough. Your catching Pokemon don't have to be perfect stat-wise, but you will be using them for a long time. So if you want to invest into them, it's not the worst thing in the world, but also don't stress about it if you're strapped for yen. Next up, after catching Pokemon, you are going to need a Sweet Scent Pokemon. Now, this could be used with your catching Pokemon, with the Parasect or Smeargle, for example. Breloom actually can't learn Sweet Scent. That's one of the main downsides. You could just have another Sweet Scent Pokemon. This Pokemon really can be anything. You really just want it to spam Sweet Scent. If you don't know, Sweet Scent is the main way most players will shiny hunt in PokeMMO, and it's probably the most important mechanic when it comes to shiny hunting. If you don't know what Sweet Scent does or what it looks like in PokeMMO, I'll go ahead and show you. First things first, you can go ahead and click the white star to the next to it, and then go ahead and bind it to your hotkey. So I have mine bound over to my 3 hotkey, and now I can go ahead and hit my 3 key on a certain location or body of water and find hordes of Pokemon. Now these hordes of Pokemon are going to be based on the location that you're at. So for example, at this patch of grass or this patch of water within Viridian City, I will find ×5 hordes of Poliwag. But if I were to go somewhere else, I might find a different Pokemon, or I might find only one horde of like one Pokemon encounter, or I might find ×3 hordes. It's all location dependent. So if you go somewhere in a grass patch and you try to use Sweet Scent and you only see 1 Pokemon or 3 Pokemon pop up, or 5 Pokemon, it really just depends on the location. It's also extremely important and very worthwhile to go ahead and use a PP Max on that Sweet Scent Pokemon. It's going to allow you to Sweet Scent 6 times before having to go heal up that PP, as opposed to 4 normally. So normally you would have 20 PP on a Sweet Scent Pokemon, but you can PP Max it up to 32. Up in the hotkey bar, you can see mine actually says 54 or 64. That's because 2 of my Pokemon have Sweet Scent. It is a very common new player thing to be like, oh, what if I just filled my party with 6 Sweet Scent Pokemon? If that was the case, everybody would do that, but it doesn't actually work that like that. It will actually just subtract based on a percentage. So for example, if you manage to have 600 Sweet Scent PP, it would just take away 100 every time you Sweet Scented, to make it so you could only Sweet Scent a maximum of 6 times before having to go heal. As we can see, my number going down accordingly. A big part of shiny hunting is finding locations that fit the need that you actually want. Finding the Pokemon you want to shiny hunt, and then trying to find how you hunt it, the methodology, such as ×5 hordes. If you're looking for recommendations, I have tons of videos. If you look up ×5 horde shiny hunting locations, or beginner shiny hunting spots for PokeMMO, free shiny hunting spots for PokeMMO, intermediate level difficulty shunting spots for PokeMMO, I have tons of videos on the topic, which should be on the channel, and there's tons of other great videos made by other PokeMMO creators that I would highly recommend. I also have a video called How to Pick What Shiny Pokemon to Hunt, and my personal methodology if you want to check that out. Setting goals, specifically shiny Pokemon, and being inspired to hunt certain shiny Pokemon is what PokeMMO is all about. Next up, the third thing on our list is going to be a teleport ocarina or Pokemon. So if you aren't familiar, an ocarina is essentially an item in PokeMMO that lets you use an HM or a TM of some sort, a utility move that happens outside of battle without actually having a Pokemon that knows that move. So for example, I have my Teleport Ocarina keybound to my 4th hotkey slot. I'm going to go ahead and click my 4, and that's going to use Teleport, essentially showing an Abra on screen, even though I don't actually have an Abra in my party. Now this is really easily replaced with just having an Abra or having some sort of Pokemon with Teleport in your party. Teleport Ocarinas and Ocarinas in general can be kind of expensive. I don't really recommend them for new players. Ocarinas are generally paying for convenience. I happen to have a lot of Ocarinas. I've been playing the game for a very, very long time, but I don't recommend wasting your Pokeyen on these until you have enough Pokeyen kind of laying around to be able to dump 500,000 Pokeyen or so into sort of a little bit of convenience and comfort during your PokeMMO experience. The best ocarinas end up being Teleport, Fly, and Surf in my personal opinion, but whatever you find yourself doing a lot of, you could probably buy an ocarina for at some point. Except for Dig Ocarina, I am a notorious Dig Ocarina hater. Some people like it, and if you want to collect it, go for it. But in my opinion, the math is you have to end up using like 512 escape ropes at some point to ever outweigh the cost of buying Dig Ocarina. So if you just keep like 20 escape ropes on you and then try to remember to bring a Dig Pokemon whenever you're inside of a cave, usually over your PokeMMO career, it should be more financially, efficient to just buy some escape ropes. As someone with over 8,000 hours, I've never exceeded the cost of Dig Ocarina. But let's not get distracted by my hatred and distaste towards Daedalus Arena. Let's explain why teleport is so good. And let's head back to our Viridian spot to actually show you guys. So, for example, if I wanted to shiny hunt Poliwag, right? The way that I would do it is I would walk inside this PC. That's going to mark my teleport location. Teleport is going to teleport you back to the last PC that you were at. Then I would head over here, surf onto the water. I have a Surf Ocarina, which allows me to get past the need of a surf Pokemon. I would go ahead and Sweet Scent on this patch of water. I would go ahead and Sweet Scent, and then I would just run away. Whenever you're shiny hunting, you want to run away from every single encounter that doesn't have a shiny Pokemon. It's going to waste so much time. It's going to cost you, I think, double the time or so. If you want to XP train, think of it as your XP training, and then if you happen to get a shiny along the way, cool. I wouldn't recommend XP training at shiny hunting locations because the time it adds is going to be pretty drastic. Like, for example, these Poliwags are level 30 or so. If I were to quote unquote XP train here, I would get pretty mediocre XP, and it would also decrease my shiny hunting speed. I would go from getting around 1,000 encounters per hour all the way down to around 600 encounters per hour. But if I were to just go XP train at a different, more efficient XP training location, get my XP training done, and then come back here when I want to shiny hunt, it would save a lot of time. But let's say I go ahead, I Sweet Scent here, and now I'm out of Sweet Scent. So what I do now is I go ahead and I click my teleport. That's going to put me right in front of the PC. This is really important. It may seem silly, but when you shiny hunt for thousands of hours, even hundreds, even tens of hours, even if you do like a 10 to 30 hour shiny hunt, right? The time save between teleporting to the PC, being put right in front of the heal so you can go ahead and heal, versus flying to the PC, because fly is going to put you outside of the PC. It saves you a tremendous amount of time. If I were to fly from this spot to the PC, I would be put in front. I'd have to walk inside. I'd have to wait for it to load for a sec, walk inside, wait for the animation, walk inside, then heal, then come back out. Versus teleport, I can just teleport, heal immediately, and then run out. You're saving 50% of the time there, essentially, from having to run in. So it really, really is important to abuse teleport when doing time swipe hordes and shiny hunting with this methodology. Next up, thing number 4 you might need for shiny hunting is going to be Leppa Berries. Now, you don't need these, and they're only really wanted / needed for certain shiny hunts in certain locations. But essentially, Leppa Berries will heal your PP by consuming the Leppa Berries. It takes 1 Leppa Berry to equal 10 PP, so 3 Leppa Berries equals a full quote-unquote inventory of shiny hunts. It's essentially 6 more PP, or 6 more Sweet Scents, which when you're ×5 hoarding equates to 30 more encounters. So generally it's 1 Leppa Berry equals 10 encounters. So if you do 3, it's 30 encounters per inventory of Leppa. And the reason why we do it is 3 because you can actually heal all of your PP in one go. We'll go ahead and use the Poliwag spot as an example once again. I'm going to go ahead and Sweet Scent until I have none left and show you guys what this looks like. So now I have no more Sweet Scent left. I'm essentially out of PP, but if I try to click that Sweet Scent button again with no PP, but I have Leppas in my bag, which I have 1,800 of over here, you can go ahead and see a menu will pop up. You guys will probably look different. I have something called custom strings installed, which make this look pretty different, which I'll explain custom strings in a second. I do recommend getting custom strings, but essentially it'll say, hey, you're out of Sweet Scent. Do you want to use some of your Leppa Berries to restore that? And you'll click yes, and you'll go ahead and immediately jump into another horde. See, my Sweet Scent was healed all the way back up. Now, this does cost Leppa Berries, and Leppa Berries are not cheap. I really only recommend Leppa Berries to shiny hunts where you need Leppa Berries. You don't want to use Leppa Berries at a Poliwag spot like this when you're right next to a PC. You really do want to go over to the PC if you can. Leppa Berries cost around, I think, 780 Pokeyen a piece if you buy them from a person. You can also just go ahead and buy them on the GTL, but if you're going to be Leppa Berry hunting a ton, I recommend buying the Leppas from another person off of the GTL because you can actually buy them for a cheaper price because then that person is dodging the listing fee on the GTL. There's so many factors that come into play with PokeMMO. Like, shiny hunting really, it's a constant expansion of learning more and more about the game because there's so many concepts like this. So let's say Leppa Berries cost around 780 a piece. Well, if you're doing a shiny hunt ×5 hordes, on average, it's going to be 30,000 encounters for a shiny, of course. If we go ahead and divide this number by 10, because each Leppa Berry will represent one, you'll need 3,000 Leppa Berries per ×5 Horde Leppa Shunt on average, which is going to equate to around 2.3 million, 2.4 million or so Pokeyen consumed. So it is not cheap to do a Leppa shiny hunt, and you really should only use these Leppas at spots that kind of quote-unquote require Leppas. A good example of a spot that quote-unquote requires Leppas would be something like a shiny Metapod / Kakuna. So if I head over to 6 Island in Kanto, The best way to shiny hunt for a shiny Weedle, Caterpie, Beedrill, Butterfree, Metapod, that whole line of Pokemon, the best way is to fly over to Island 6, repel all the way up over to the location up here, and then you want to pop ×5 Hordes right here. Now, you technically could do this without Leppas, I guess, if you just want to pop a repel each time, but this is a spot where it's far enough from a PC, you have to travel through a bunch of encounters. If you ever have to travel through a bunch of wild encounters, that's usually the situation to where it's worth to Leppa. So I would go ahead and just sit here, ×5 Horde, and pop Leppas every single time to restore my PP, and it should be 50-50 chance of Hordes here between Metapod and Kakuna. The next item that I recommend having is a type of Pokemon. This is going to be a lead Pokemon, and this is going to depend on what type of shiny hunt you're doing. Generally, you want to lead with a Pokemon with an out-of-world ability that affects your shiny hunt in some way. A really good example is I will often lead with Spinarak with the Swarm ability when I'm doing single encounters. The main reason for this is that Swarm offers an overworld ability, which we put Spinarak in the front of our party. We can then see in the top left, Swarm gives a plus 10% chance for wild Pokemon encounters. Good examples of lead Pokemon include things like Synchronize, which is an ability that'll give you an increased chance of matching the nature that you have on a specific Pokemon. So, for example, I have this Calm Kadabra. Let's say, for example, I was shiny hunting something where I wanted the shiny to come out Calm Nature. I could go ahead and use this synchronized Calm Kadabra, and essentially, whenever I finally get that shiny, there is an increased chance, I think it's around a 15% chance or so, 20% increased chance that that wild Pokemon will match that nature and have that Calm Nature. This can be really important if you want to breed up a shiny Pokemon to make it competitive or just have some sort of extra advantage. You could also use a Cute Charm Pokemon, which will increase the chance of the Pokemon being the opposite gender. So, for example, I have this Minccino right here, and this Minccino is male nature with Cute Charm. If I look at Cute Charm in the top left, it gives a 15% chance for opposite gender enemies. So often you want to go for female shinies. So it's good to have a male Cute Charm Pokemon to be able to shiny hunt for those male shinies. These effects do work in Hordes. So if I were to head back over to that, for example, this Poliwag spot, and I wanted to go for a female Poliwag, I would lead with my Minccino, and it would increase the odds of the wild Poliwag being the opposite gender, so being female. Generally, you want female shinies in PokeMMO just because they are easier and cheaper to breed up for Pokeyen. But that can actually depend, to be fair. For example, if you're looking for a shiny Ponyta or Rapidash, that's an extremely common shiny. So hilariously, usually hunting for a male and then buying a female is cheaper since there's so many people that sell their shiny Rapidash on the GTL. Shiny breeding gets really complicated with keeping the OT and keeping the species, etc., etc. I do have a shiny breeding guide on my channel. I recommend checking that out if you're interested in that. It's kind of an expensive thing, but it's a good way to put some love and effort into your shinies that you've already put so much love and effort into achieving. These two players are also great examples of people actually in the wild just shiny hunting to show you what it looks like. I swear to God, I didn't actually look at this beforehand. This is not pre-checked or pre-watched. Wow, I didn't expect to see this guy getting a shiny Poliwag on camera. Well, I gotta go give him the congratulations in normal chat. That's something I didn't expect to see. Congratulations, Steve. Congrats. I'm glad it wasn't Farting Bubbles. Sorry, Farting Bubbles, but that username is kind of unhinged. All right, moving onward past the lead Pokemon. Next up is you might want a certain type of safety Pokemon. Now, this can include a couple different variants, but essentially, you want to have some sort of Pokemon that can help you safely catch the Pokemon that you're encountering that might have a weird niche specific clause. Good examples are things like Explosion Pokemon, Self-Destruct Pokemon, being able to dodge things like Takedown or moves like Final Gambit. Examples of this include Damp Pokemon to dodge Self-Destruct and Explosion Pokemon. Another example is Imprison Pokemon like this Smeargle. This Imprison Self-Destruct Pokemon was actually used to catch Shiny Coughing back in the day because at the Cinnabar Mansion Shiny Coughing location, those Coughings often have Reactive Gas plus Self-Destruct, and Reactive Gas is an ability on Coughing that shuts off other abilities. So hilariously at that spot, or rather not hilariously, because a lot of people lost Shiny Coughings to Self-Destruct, which they thought would be taken care of by their Damp ability Pokemon, Reactive Gas would shut off your Damp ability and then allow your Shiny Coughing to then click Self-Destruction, which was really, really sad to see a lot of players lose Shinies there after that update that added Reactive Gas without them knowing. So that spot started to use Imprison Self-Destruct. Now, you can actually go Shiny Hunt Coughing at a much safer safer spot now in Johto, which I recommend if you want shiny coughing. Amazing shiny, by the way. Definitely recommend checking that out. And just finding what shinies you like in which colors. Coughing / Wheezing are amazing options. But having a Pokemon that knows Taunt can be super important for certain things like Metronome. I use this Taunt Cricketune, for example, when I'm shiny hunting in Berry Forest, because there is a 5% chance for Munchlax, and that Munchlax knows Metronome, which could technically grab Self-Destruct or Memento or Final Gambit. These are all moves that instantly KO the Pokemon, which you want to avoid. Another important one is something like Arena Trap for teleport Pokemon. If you're shiny hunting Abra, shiny hunting Ralts, these are Pokemon that can teleport out of the battle if they're shiny. You have to make sure you have an Arena Trap Pokemon or some sort of Pokemon that will lock them into the fight to prevent your shiny from teleporting away. I really can't express enough how important safety Pokemon are like this, because there is nothing more devastating than spending hundreds of hours going for a specific shiny Pokemon just for it to teleport away from you when you finally find it. A common one that I recommend is also a high-level Spiritomb. A lot of shiny Pokemon have things like Takedown, have things like Final Gambit, and a high-level Ghost type will tank their other attacks while also preventing them from taking the recoil from those moves. Keep in mind, you never want to use a Ghost type Pokemon against High Jump Kick. If the wild Pokemon, the wild shiny, clicks High Jump Kick, and they happen to, if you're a Ghost type, it counts as a miss, so they will take 50% damage. So never use a Ghost type against High Jump Kick, but against a lot of those other recoil moves, things like Double Edge, Takedown, Final, etc., it's a good option. Next up is absolutely tons and tons of Pokeballs. You never want to encounter a shiny and realize that you didn't have enough Pokeballs or aren't able to catch it because of the lack of Pokeballs. You make sure you never ever want to run out of Pokeballs. Having tons of normal Pokeballs is fantastic. Dusk Balls, Timer Balls are great. Dream Balls are great. Having a different variety of Pokeballs is super, super important so you can properly catch the shiny Pokemon. Next up is probably the hardest one to explain to new players, and this is custom strings. Custom strings are a weird add-on that are difficult to explain, but I recommend players install them if they want to take PokeMMO seriously. What custom strings do is that they essentially edit out certain texts in the game, which speed up a lot of the gameplay. There will be a really in-depth guide breaking down custom strings in the description. There will be a guide explaining them, as well as a guide with an updated link to current-day custom strings. I can quickly show you an example. If I were to head to the PC and heal, there's no see how fast that is and how there's a lack of heal text. It greatly speeds things up like healing, which can really matter when you're doing any sort of shiny hunting, ×5 hordes, etc. If you ever want to go for a rare shiny in PokeMMO, like an egg shiny, which we'll get to in a fair bit of time, strings are pretty much a requirement. They actually double the speed of the shiny hunt. If you try to make eggs without strings, you can do like 220 or so within an hour if you're efficient. With strings, people can do, I do around 400 eggs an hour, and I think pushing for 360 or so is like quite good, but I know of players who reach 500 or 600 eggs an hour, which is an extremely skill expressive activity. All right, and then another add-on that's extremely important, in my opinion, to use when shiny hunting in PokeMMO is an encounter counter. Now, this one is person dependent. You may want to use an encounter counter, you may not. I have whole videos delving into the psychology of an encounter counter, and basically it just comes down to use it if it works for you. If it doesn't, don't use it, right? For some people, an encounter counter kind of drives them a little mad. It's kind of like watching the clock as you're waiting for school to end, and that just makes it feel a lot longer. But for some people like myself, I don't like fruitless grinds. I come from RuneScape, where you log in every day, you gain a bunch of consistent XP, you always make progress no matter what, and you log off. In Pokemon, when you're shiny hunting, it doesn't really matter how many encounters you have. It doesn't really matter. If you shiny hunt for 15 hours in a day, you don't see a shiny Pokemon, you log off, it feels like you've made no progress. And it's important to understand statistically and mathematically, you aren't really making progress when you're shiny hunting. Mathematically, no matter if you're 1 encounter dry or 1 million encounters dry, your odds of getting a shiny is always 1 out of 30,000. You want to make sure that you keep that in mind mathematically, but using an encounter counter can make you feel like you're making progress. You're almost tricking yourself into feeling more accomplished and helping you continue that progress, which at the end of the day, if you're tricking yourself into making more progress, it's kind of a beneficial thing, but it's important to acknowledge the trick. Encounter counters are weird, but essentially all they do is keep track of your encounters, keep track of how many encounters you've done. It's a great way to keep perspective as well. I noticed that so many new players, and just a human thing in general, overestimate the work they've done. It feels like if you sit there and ×5 horde hunt all day for 10 hours, some people might not realize they're actually hunting kind of inefficiently and only getting like 500 encounters per hour. So it feels like they've done like 10,000 encounters or 15,000 encounters, when in reality, they might have only done like 2,000 or 3,000 encounters. So having that reality checked and keeping in mind how many encounters you've actually done is super important in my personal opinion. And it just feels a lot better logging in, seeing your encounter counter at 10,000 and then logging off the next day and seeing it at 15,000. It makes you feel like you're making progress towards a shiny. You might also notice here that I'm currently 41,000 encounters dry, and some of you might be thinking, oh my goodness, how could you be over 30,000 encounters? That is so unlucky. And I'm here to tell you, it's actually not that bad. Now, I might sound a little psychotic when I say this, but I want to also back it up with some math. This is the shiny binomial distribution chart. I'm no math expert, but the person who made this might be. This essentially explains to you the odds based on binomial distribution, whether or not you should have gotten a shiny or could have gotten a shiny at that point, essentially. So we see shiny percentage on the left with donator status and without. Just ignore the with donator status. Just look at the without donator status tab as well as the encounters. So essentially, if you go to the right and you scroll down to 30,000 encounters and then go to the left for a quick sec, you can see there is only a 63.21% chance to have gotten a shiny by 30,000 encounters. That's the shiny rate. 30,000 is the shiny rate, right? But there's only a little bit more than a coin flip of a chance, of 50-50 essentially, that you would have gotten a shiny by then. So it's not that crazy. With that math, around 4 out of your 10 shiny hunts should go over 30,000 encounters. It's actually shockingly normal. If we go down, so I'm currently 41,000, we can see at 45,000 encounters, there's only a 77% chance for you to have gotten a shiny by that point. That's 27% chance. That's a 1 out of 4 shunts that you go that dry. It's not that crazy. It's really important to keep this math in mind and understanding the realistics and stuff like this when going for shiny hunting. It's very common and very often that players feel like they're extremely dry and extremely unlucky, and it's okay to feel however you want to feel, but make sure to understand the logistics of it as well and to fact check your feelings. If someone tells me, hey, I'm 45,000 encounters dry and I'm just really demotivated from shunting, I always say, hey man, I'm sorry, I wish you the best of luck and I hope you get a shiny as soon as possible. You never want to make someone feel worse when they're already feeling bad. There's no reason to be like, actually, that's a 1 out of 4 chance. You don't want to nerd emoji them essentially. But if you're the shiny hunter, you might want to nerd emoji yourself. It's totally okay to be like, oh, you know what? I'm 41,000 encounters dry, 45,000 or so. It's a 1 out of 4 chance this happens. It's really not that unlucky. Now, if you're one of the unlucky souls to go over 300,000 encounters dry or even 100,000 encounters dry, feel free to complain to your heart's content. Depending on how many shinies you do, we can do some other math or also think about it in a grand scale, right? We see that 100,000 encounters dry and we see that 96% number. So that means that there is only a 4% chance for you to go 100,000 encounters dry, which seems really low, right? But if you think about it like this, if you think about it how, let's say you have 100 shiny hunters, right? And they all shiny hunt to a shiny. 4 out of those 100 shiny hunters on their very first shunt should go 100k plus dry. It's someone has to be that dry player at some point. Also, if you ever end up doing 100 shiny hunts, which most people won't get to, but if you ever end up doing 100 shiny hunts, at least 4 of them should have ended up going over 100,000 encounters dry. RNG is RNG. It is unlikely that you were shiny locked. That is kind of a conspiracy and a copium thing that people use to say, oh, you know, I couldn't possibly just be this unlucky. There must be some physical barrier. I'm sorry, it is most likely RNG. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope you get a shiny as soon as possible, and that's all I can say. And then finally, the final thing you'll need for shiny hunting in PokeMMO is time, patience, and perseverance. Next up, I want to cover some quick general info, most of which we've already touched on, so I'm going to cover most of them really quickly, but there is one that I want to spend a little more time on. First, 3 that are pretty simple. Number 1, test your shiny hunts for safety. What I usually recommend doing is going and doing a ×5 horde encounter and essentially picking an arbitrary Pokemon within that horde. So for example, in this Bouffalant horde, I'm going to decide that this level 32 female Bouffalant is shiny for the sake of this example. And essentially what you would do is you would pretend that this Pokemon on the far right is shiny, this level 33 one actually, the far right one. And you would essentially clear down the horde of Pokemon and act like you're catching the shiny Pokemon. This is going to let you know what dangers exist within this horde before before having to actually do it. You're basically practicing, right? So being aware of things like Scary Face on Bouffalant, being aware of reversal, being aware of certain damage checks. Maybe your Pokemon just takes way more damage than you would expect. Maybe they have a move that you weren't expecting, like Final Gambit or like Double Edge. There's tons of things to just be aware of and to practice for when doing a shiny hunt in PokeMMO. So I really can't recommend enough. You should test every single shiny hunt before you actually get the shiny. When it comes to shiny hunting, with something that takes so much time to actually get one, better safe than sorry comes into play drastically. Next up, we already touched on it vaguely, but is to make sure you're using some sort of lead Pokemon. Almost at every single shiny hunt, there's some sort of lead Pokemon you could be using for a benefit, such as Cute Charm, Synchronize, or Swarm. And then next up is the hotkey bar. We've already touched on this vaguely, but using the hotkey bar is extremely helpful, extremely important. You can also drag and essentially move your hotkey bar. If you click, there is a hidden, for whatever reason, don't ask me why, there is a hidden UI essentially around the hotkey bar that you can't see. If you actually open your bag, I think it'll show it. Yeah, if you open your bag, you actually can see the hotkey bar and click this bar and essentially move it to wherever you would like on the screen. I usually keep mine in this top left middle-ish corner. And make sure to drag and drop whatever you want to on the hotkey bar via your bag slots, or if it's a specific move that you want, like we talked about, you can head over to it and click the white star to the right of it, and that will allow you to hotkey bind the move. Binding things like Sweet Scent, Expert Lures, Leppas, Repels, Ocarinas, Teleport, Surf, Fly, etc. can all be super important when shiny hunting. And then finally, let's talk about how to increase your shiny rate. There are two ways you can do this. There are things called Donator Status, and there are things called Shiny Charm. Now, these are both extremely expensive, and I don't really recommend them to new shiny hunters. The beauty of shiny hunting in PokeMMO is that it can be done for free, and that it should be done for free. Most of your shiny hunting probably should be done for free. That's what I do with most of my shiny hunting. But if you want to spend Pokeyen just for the increased chance of getting a shiny, you can do so. It's really important to keep in mind, you're essentially pissing away a bunch of Pokeyen just for that increased chance. It is very, 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 very common for someone to buy a 30-day donor status, shiny hunt all month, and get nothing. If you can't handle that at the end of the month, I would not recommend buying a donor status. If it's going to leave you feeling upset and demotivated because you didn't get a shiny on the shiny boost, it's probably not for you. But if you're okay with using that Pokeyen for that increased chance, I recommend it. I think donor statuses are also a lot more worth it than shiny charm. Donor status is 1500 RP for 30 days. We can go ahead and check how much that ends up being. You can also buy them on the GTL. You can buy RP on the GTL. You can buy all of this stuff with Pokeyen, which I love. I'm a totally free-to-play player in PokeMMO, and I've played for over 8,000 hours. Don't let the people who you know that do spend a lot of money on PokeMMO make you think that you have to spend money on PokeMMO to be successful. It's absolutely not the case. So a 30-day donor status currently costs around 3.6 million Pokeyen, which is quite a lot of Pokeyen, I will say, but you can definitely easily make that amount of Pokeyen in a few days or so, and then have the rest of the month. You want to essentially self-sustain that 30-day donor status permanently. It absolutely can be done. That's what I often do, but right now I'm doing a money-making challenge where I'm sort of saving Pokeyen, so I actually don't have donor status active. And once again, you don't need donor status active to be able to actually shiny hunt. So donor status does give you a 10% chance of encountering, an increased 10% chance of encountering shinies, and then shiny charm gives you another 10% chance if you're the person who pops the charm. Shiny charms are also, can be shared with your friends. You can do it in a link of 4, and anybody else in the link gets a 5% bonus, but the popper of the charm gets a 10%. It's important to note that it's 10% on top of 10%, so you would take the 30,000 encounter shiny rate and subtract 3,000 from it for the first 10%. Shiny charm status and donator status both do stack, so then you could actually pop both of them and bring your shiny rate all the way down to 1 out of 24,300. This is normally the lowest shiny rate in PokeMMO, unless there's something special going on like a holiday boost, but that's only happened once in PokeMMO's history. Keep in mind the donor status does last 30 days, and the shiny charm only lasts 1 hour. So shiny charms are much less efficient for the Pokeyen you put in, even being only 100 RP or around 250k in comparison to the donor status. A lot of players who don't have much Pokeyen think, oh, I can't really afford a donor status, but I can afford a shiny charm, so let me go buy that. And I can't encourage you to do the opposite enough. Don't buy shiny charm unless you already have a donor status on. It is much less efficient, and I wouldn't even recommend shiny charms for most types of shunts. I have more videos going over the math of this. If you Google is donor status worth it or is shiny charm worth it, I compare the two and go over the math, but essentially it's almost never worth to use shiny charms unless you're either credit card swiping or have tons of Pokeyen, or if you're doing like an egg hunt, and even egg hunts, it's kind of debated whether or not they're worth. It's important to keep in mind, shiny charms are mostly for fun. It's something you kind of do to piss away more Pokeyen as a shiny hunter, because the main thing you care about is getting that OT shiny. You don't really care about having Pokeyen. Donor statuses are kind of different. They actually can be worth it, but you have to also make a lot of Pokeyen and making sure that you're also a moneymaker and not just a shiny hunter. Even if you shiny hunt like just 2 or 3 hours a day, a donator status will far outweigh a shiny charm in terms of cost. We can even go further than that actually and look at the cost of 30-day donor status being 3.6 mil, calculator in the bottom middle if you aren't aware, and then go ahead and take that number and divide it by 250,000 Pokeyen, aka the cost of a shiny charm, and find that if you shiny hunt even just 14.4 hours in a month, so that's less than half an hour a day, then it's more worth to use donor status than it is to use shiny charm. You can even buy donor status for 30 days, shiny hunt 15 hours in one day for the whole month, and it would have been more efficient for you to buy donor status than to use shiny charms. If you shiny hunt for just 1 hour per day for a month, you're more than doubling your efficiency when it comes to donor status for shiny charm. Quick note here that any numbers I use in this video will just be discussing the average rate of getting a shiny without using donor status. You could always technically get a shiny at 1 encounter or 1 million encounters, but it's better to draw the line at the norm and not the outliers. And with that note out of the way, let's finally go ahead and jump into shiny hunting methods. Probably the most important part of the video and the bulk of the video. Every single Pokemon in PokeMMO has a different shiny hunting method that will take different amounts of time, Pokeyen, encounters, etc. And understanding each of these methods to help you execute and understand what shiny to actually hunt or how to best shiny hunt the Pokemon you want to go after is crucial. It is everything when it comes to shiny hunting. Game knowledge is power within PokeMMO. Now, using all the information we've previously learned in the video, let me show you guys how I would prepare for a ×5 Horde hunt. First things first, I would grab my lead Pokemon, which in this case is going to be a synchronized Impish Xatu. I went ahead and slapped a Choice Scarf on it to help it be able to run away from the Pokemon, since Choice Scarf is going to increase the speed of it, which is going to increase the chance of being able to run. The reason I went for an Impish Xatu is because I'm going for shiny Druddigon, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. The way that I knew to go for Impish, because I checked PvP stats, I went to the tier that Druddigon is in, and then I searched for Druddigon, and I saw that the main used nature, if I could type correctly, is Impish. So I know to actually go ahead and go for an Impish nature because I want to get a shiny Druddigon that could possibly be used in PvP, and this spot will be 100% chance for Druddigon. So we're over here in Icarus City. I also went ahead and grabbed my Sweet Scent Pokemon with PP Max. I also went ahead and grabbed a catching Pokemon to help me safely secure it. I also went ahead and headed over to Druddigon's Pokedex entry, checked its moves, and saw wild locations, and saw, hey, you can go Horde it inside Dragon Spiral Tower as a Horde. I checked the moves that has, so it's level 29 to 30. You would go over to the moves, you would see, okay, it might have Dragon Claw, Slash, Scary Face, and Dragon Rage. It shouldn't have any dangerous moves here. You can usually tell what moves a Pokemon has by the last 4 moves it learned in its level slot, but there can also be a slight variation there, so you want to just keep that in mind. Everything else is just gravy on top. I have my catching Pokemon, my Sweet Center, and my lead. These are just extra catching Pokemon in case I need them for the extra help / support. I would then head over to the Druddigon spot, which for this spot is over here, and I would go ahead and spam ×5 Hordes. I would sit here and I would spam ×5 Hordes until I run out of PP. I would then teleport back to the PC using a teleport Pokemon or a teleport Ocarina. I would teleport away after using all my PP. I would go heal if you can. To be fair, at this location, you can't actually teleport until you're out of the little location like that. So you would run over here, you would teleport, you would heal, and then you would run back, and you would just do this over and over and over again until you have a shiny Pokemon. I won't be doing full examples like this for every type of shiny hunting methodology, but I just wanted to show you guys what it looked like in a full, like using all of the information we had learned previously in the video. But in terms of shiny hunting methods, this is the most basic one, this is the most important one, this is the most shiny hunted type of shiny in PokeMMO. This is ×5 Hordes. Shiny hunting with ×5 Hordes should give you around 1,000 encounters per hour if you're hunting decently efficiently, or around 30 hours per shiny. This can depend on the spot location, of course, and how far you actually are from the PC. Numbers will vary based on efficiency and based on locations for all of the numbers I show today for the methods. One of the best part about ×5 Hordes near a PC or ×5 Hording without Leppas is that is a free shiny hunt. This is what I recommend for all new shunters to do immediately, and what I recommend to do for the rest of this video while you learn and to learn more and progress with shiny hunting. You should probably be shiny hunting in the background. This is the shiny hunting method that I recommend most players do for pretty much most of their shiny hunting career. Now, you might think that ×5 hoarding near a PC, since it's so fast and so free in terms of shiny hunting, you probably don't get very good shinies, but that is not the case at all. All of the shinies I'm showing on screen now were shinies I've achieved via ×5 hordes. I did breed down the Celio into his field, though it's important to note, but things like Exceldor, things like Nidoking, Drudagon, Slowbro, Wooper, or Quagsire, whichever you prefer, these are all shinies that can all be achieved for no Pokeyen cost, just time and effort. And there's tons more where that came from, and I can't recommend you going to go check out all the different ×5 horde spot within PokeMMO. For some extra info and tips regarding ×5 hoarding, I recommend that for all horde type shunts, you generally want to lead with some sort of synchronized Pokemon to go for that nature that would work well with the species. However, this isn't always ideal. For example, if you're shunting something like Deano, which is generally a special attacking Pokemon, it's a horde split with Deano, so there's another Pokemon at that location. It's split with Mienfoo, but either way, you're hunting for a special attacking Pokemon with a phase/fail that is a physical attacker, so I wouldn't personally recommend using a modest/timid synchronized lead when you're shunting for Deano, because you wouldn't want that synchronized to proc when you get that Miano phase, which leads to an even more frustrating phase when you get a Mienfoo, a Pokemon you didn't want, and then you also get a bad nature to make it unusable on top of it. You don't want to put yourself in that situation, so a good backup lead would be a male cute charm Pokemon, which we talked about earlier, to go for that female OT shiny since they are cheaper to breed on average. Certain shunts will also need specific leads like runaway Pokemon, like Eradicate, personally, that I use when you're shiny hunting for something like Arena Trap Dugtrio or Shadow Tag Wobbuffet, which will try to trap you. You can also use a ghost type or a flying type to escape these trapping Pokemon. Next up, let's cover the method that is ×5 hordes, but with Leppas. I'm going to show you the example here over in Blackthorn City, where you can go hunt for shiny Dratini. You'll want to head through this body of water over to Dragon's Den, which is right over across the body of water. You'll want to head inside, head down the ladder, and then head over here. Do you see how this spot is decently far from a PC? This is why it requires Leppa Berries, which are used to heal your PP to essentially let you sit here and shiny hunt infinitely. Here, you'll encounter ×5 hordes of totally normal Magikarp, and also ×5 hordes of Dratini. Doing a ×5 horde hunt with Leppas will usually give you around 12 to 1400 encounters per hour, or 25 hours per shiny Pokemon on average. This is generally the fastest kind of shunting within PokeMMO. There are other niche things like Mysterious Balls, which we'll cover well later into the video, but for the average player, this is going to be the fastest kind of shiny hunt you can possibly do. But since it's so fast, it does have a bit of a cost attached to it. Assuming that you buy Leppa Berries off of the GTL from a Leppa Berry grower/trader, you can buy them for about 780 to even 800 Pokeyen per Leppa, and assuming that number, it's going to end up costing you around 2.4 million Pokeyen per shiny on average when doing ×5 hordes with Leppas. You can get some amazing shinies with this cost, though. Obviously, a good example is shiny Dratini/Dragonair/Dragonite. A lot of people absolutely love this shiny Pokemon. I think it's an all-time fan favorite, the nice pink little noodle. You can also get things like shiny Golurk/Golett, which I think is a super underrated shunt. You can go for shiny Miltank, and you can go for shiny Ditto. Keep in mind, 2.4 mil Pokeyen per shiny means per shiny, not per target shiny. So a good example is this Dratini spot, and I purposefully wanted to talk about this kind of spot because this is a 2080 spot. That means you've seen me see mostly Magikarps and no Dratinis, yet there's a Dratini horde. There is only a 20% chance that I see a horde of Dratinis here versus an 80% chance that I see a horde of Magikarps. That means that on average, I'll end up seeing 4 Magikarps per my 1 Dratini. That means 5 shiny hunts on average just to get 1 shiny Dratini. That means 2.4 million Pokeyen times 5. So it's actually going to cost me around 12 million Pokeyen to shiny hunt for an OT Dratini, let alone the time investment. Dratini usually ends up being a 150-hour hunt because of this, which, to be fair, is much better than the 1500-hour hunt it used to be pre-Johto. Unfortunately, I will say there's not a very well documented source online from what I've seen displaying which hordes are split in these ways, 20/80, 60/40, etc. A lot of it just comes from personal play and experience and testing. I did do a video called Testing the Biggest Shiny Hunting Change Within the History of PokeMMO. It's somewhere on my YouTube channel, which might be linked in the description. If it's not, you can actually yell at me in the comments and I will link it to you. But this whole horde splitting thing was honestly one of the most controversial updates within PokeMMO's history. A lot of players quit when it came out, and it was massively hated at the time, but honestly, with time to think about it and looking back and reflecting, I think it was probably one of the better updates in PokeMMO's past. I think allowing a new difficulty to be slotted into ×5 horde hunts creates a lot more diversity and complexity with shiny hunting. Different difficulty tiers of shiny hunts are so important. You want players to go for the most difficult shunt that they can manage, whether that's the easiest shunt or the second hardest or the third or the fourth or the fifth. You want these different layers. You want a shiny hunt that takes 25 hours, a shiny hunt that takes 30 hours, 50 hours, 100 hours, 150, 1050, and scaling up from there is very, very important. You want your players to have the best challenge that best suits their needs. And I think that's something that PokeMMO does amazingly well. Next up is going to be ×3 hordes, which should have a similar setup to some of your ×5 horde hunts. For example, I have another synchronized Pokemon with Adamant Nature for the spot that I'm going to, 2 different catching Pokemon, and Sweet Scent in my inventory. I'm going to go ahead and bike over to the spot that I'm going to be going to today, which is Trubbish/Minccino. On average, with a ×3 horde hunt, you should be able to get around 600 encounters per hour, or around 50 hours on average of hunting per shiny. ×3 hordes near a PC are another free hunt as long as you're not using Leppa Berries, which is a massive reason why I would go ahead and recommend this to players who are looking for something a little more challenging than ×5 hordes. I actually didn't realize this when writing the script, but I essentially went in terms of difficulty. So if you wanted to go from the easiest hunts down to the most difficult, you can kind of just follow the progression of this list. Not exactly though, I saved some of the more nicher hunts for the end. Apologies for not having that many ×3 horde shinies to actually show you guys examples, but some examples of ×3 horde shinies include Minccino, Scolipede, Trubbish, which is also at the spot we were just at, Zangoose, Seviper, and Trapinch. And there's not much else to say or any extra info regarding ×3 hordes that wasn't already said with ×5 hordes. So next up, I'll be talking about ×3 hordes with Leppas. Similar to any other horde hunt, you'll want to pick a starter that makes sense for the location you're at, and you'll also end up getting around 700 to 800 encounters per hour or 40 hours per shiny. It's always important to remind you guys that with Leppa hunts, I really only recommend doing Leppas or using Leppas for horde hunts if you're that far away from a PC to where it's really worth it. Now, the cost of a ×3 horde Leppa hunt is assuming you're buying Leppa Berries for around 800 Pokeyen from traders off of the GTL. If you don't know, buying Leppas off of the GTL from a trader either in trade chat or in a trade Discord will save you some Pokeyen and make the seller a bit more Pokeyen. On average, it should cost you around 4 million Pokeyen per ×3 horde hunt with Leppas. ×3 horde Leppa shinies include things like Scolipede, Cottony, Sigilyph, and Maractus, which is a pretty underrated shiny. You also can't forget about Zorua, which is probably one of the biggest targets and most popular shinies within PokeMMO. Everyone at this location is hunting Zorua, which actually brings me to my next point. I purposely ended on Zorua because there's another very interesting specific hunt. Zorua isn't a horde split like Dratini was. It's something even worse, something even more difficult. Zorua is a rare shiny disguised as a ×3 horde shiny, because the way that you hunt for Zorua is by leading your party with a reactive gas wheezing. Really good timing on that. And you use the reactive gas wheezing to turn off its disguise ability and neutralize its ability. And you'll end up seeing one Zorua every few hordes. Sometimes you might not even see a single Zorua for 12 or more hordes at a time. Good luck to all the brave Zorua hunters out there. You should end up with 20 other shinies on the way to one Zorua. Next up, the shiny method I'm going to be talking about is going to be single encountering. Now, I think the phrase that really describes single encounter hunting the most is that so many players try it and they immediately tell me, dude, this is a different beast. This is a different kind of hunt entirely. Single encountering is just so much more difficult and so much harder of a hunt. It's a longer hunt. It's a very different hunt in comparison to ×5 hordes, where you're sitting there spamming Sweet Scent. With single encounters, you really have to run back and forth, pop these different items called expert lures, which we'll talk about more in a sec. You have to use a swarm Pokemon, which is different, and the encounters per hour is just drastically lower. The spot that I am at here, just north of Salation Town, is one of the most popular single encounter spots in the game, and I'll show you all the encounters here in a quick sec. I do recommend don't actually come from Celestic Town and then go east to get to this spot. Weirdly enough, this is one of the weird spots in game where there's like a high ground and a low ground. If you go to the east of Celestic Town, you will see different spawns, versus if you head here, you will see better spawns. So let's go ahead and pop our expert lore, and then I'll explain what this item does. Expert lore is an item that gives you lore only encounters. That's very important, but it also increases your encounter rates in general by 10%. So if you're ever running back and forth in grass looking for a shiny Pokemon, you almost always want to be using expert lures. These can be bought from most Pokemarts within the game. If you can't find them, go to like the E4, like the late game Pokemart. You should be able to find them there. Can be bought from most Pokemarts in the game. It can be bought for 1,500 Pokeyen for an expert lures. All the prices, they're also like super lore, and there's a easier lures, but they basically just have less steps but have the same effect, so the price really does match up. I recommend choosing expert lures unless you're going to be at a spot for like a shorter period of time. Feel free to use a lower cost lure, whatever works for you. If you want to just test something or just catch like one Charmander for the Pokedex, for example, you could just use a normal lure. They do make the wild Pokemon slightly higher level. You can also get double battles within a single encounter. That's a very, very important one. And then you have that 5% chance to encounter a lore exclusive species. So let's go ahead and do a few encounters here and show you guys what it looks like. I'm also using a swarm Pokemon here because you want to get as many increased encounters as possible. Single encounters is so slow. You don't want to use a synchronized Pokemon here. I really don't recommend it because you're going to be here for so many hours hunting. It's not worth that slight chance of getting that synchronized proc when you finally get the shiny. You really want to speed up your ability to get that shiny. That's what matters the most here. This is a double battle we can see. So with the lures active, you can get 2 Pokemon in 1 encounter. That drastically ups the amount of encounters you're able to get per hour. And here we can actually see a wild Breloom. I believe that is one of the lore spawns here, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Route 210 and Sinnoh, it is a lore spawn. This spot is extremely good because this spot has multiple rare shinies. I think it has 4 different rare shinies. It's probably the best single encounter spot in the game. It has shiny Scyther, Breloom, Mr. Mime, and Sudowoodo. I always forget one of them offhand, but yeah, Sudowoodo is the 4th one. You can also get Cricketune here. Not exactly a rare shiny, but a pretty cool one. Now, if you are popping expert lures and using a swarm Pokemon and hunting pretty efficiently, you should be able to get around 300 encounters per hour here, or 100 hours per shiny. But that per shiny phrase is very, very important. One of the most difficult parts of single encountering is that there are so many phases and so many chances to fail. That's a really good double encounter. Very lucky. There are so many chances to fail. When you're sitting here looking for just a handful of single encounter Pokemon, usually, the chance, even stacking up all of the, like, there's 4 rares here, right? And stacking up all of those odds, it ends up being like a 20% chance or so that I get a good shiny / a shiny that I actually want. So if I have to go 5 phases to get one shiny that I want with a 20% chance, that's going to equate to 500 hours for one shiny that I actually want. And that one shiny could be a Mr. Mime, a Breloom, a Scyther, so it could be any of the 4 rares. And that's even assuming you're not going unlucky. If you go unlucky on a single encounter hunt, you start going dry, you start getting more phases than you should on average, things can get pretty painful. But that's only what's going to make that shiny when you finally get it that much more meaningful. All of that hardship and difficulty you go through to get the shiny makes it that much juicier. That's pretty much the core concept of PokeMMO shiny hunting. Now, there is a bit of a cost while single encounter hunting since you're using those expert lures, but it's really not as bad as you think. It should only cost you around 15,000 Pokeyen per hour when you're popping expert lures. It's actually pretty solid in my opinion and super worth the extra encounters per hour. Now, something quick to note here, there are also items called premium lures and legendary lures, and these are much more not worth it. The effect is extremely good. If you want to use them for fun, it's kind of like Shiny Charm. If you want to use them for fun, you can do so, but in terms of finances, it's really not recommended. Premium lures do have a much stronger effect, plus 25% encounter rate. Once again, foes are stronger. You can encounter multiple foes. There's a 10% chance for lore exclusive species, and then you also have a chance to get rare hordes. So you can see like ×3 hordes of Breloom randomly while single encountering, which is pretty cool. And then if you encounter last part is the juicy part, but it's also a big bait. Okay, don't fall for this. At the very end, it says, if you encounter a shiny Pokemon, secret shiny rates are increased by 25%. That's really nice in theory, but to be actively on a premium lore by the time you finally get that shiny is just so unlikely. You'd have to pop so many, and they're so expensive. Premium lures, the last time I checked mathematically, usually end up costing you around 400 to 600,000 Pokeyen per hour. They are excruciatingly expensive. Yes, the effect is good, but is it worth the price? I don't personally think so. Legendary lures, I haven't calced in a while in terms of the price. If I were to guesstimate, I would bet it's somewhere between 200 to 400,000 Pokeyen per hour. But they have a similar-ish effect to premium lures, but they also give you a chance of finding that roaming legendary if you already haven't captured it. Some people like to use these to find the legendary. I honestly wouldn't even recommend it. I think usually it's something you do out of desperation to try to end the hunt because you're sick of hunting for the legendary, but I think it's kind of a Pokeyen trap. I wouldn't recommend legendary lures or premium lures, at least at their current price. It's very possible one day in the future they reach a low enough price to where it actually is worth using them. There's a lot of amazing single encounter shinies, including things like Bagon/Salamence. Hopefully I can find one on the GTL really quick. Yeah, Salamence is over deep in Meteor Falls. Amazing single encounter shiny that a lot of people like to go for. There's also Shroomish/Breloom, which we just saw here for a quick sec. The nice orange shiny. There's also Mr. Mime, which I think is at least a pretty cool shiny, even though he's kind of a creepy dude. And there's also Tropius, which can be single encounter, which I'm a big Tropius fan. His shiny's not amazing, but Tropius, it's got to be one of the coolest Pokemon. I believe that's everything with single encounters. If you think I missed anything, once again, let me know in the comments, and I can wish you guys the best of luck on this kind of hunt. Next up is fishing. For fishing, I highly recommend using a sticky hold or suction cup type of Pokemon with that ability. It's going to give you an increased chance of bites while fishing, and it is pretty drastic, and you really will notice it. It's kind of similar to single encounters where you just want to do everything to increase the number of encounters you'll be getting, which also includes popping expert lures here. Now, a big difference about expert luring while fishing versus expert luring while single encounter is that expert lures kind of work like repels, where if they run out, the game will prompt you saying, hey, do you want to pop another expert lure when you're single encountering? This won't happen while you're fishing. You'll actually have to manually repop the expert lure while fishing, which is kind of annoying. It makes you have to pay a little bit more attention. And you always have to watch to see when your expert lure wears out so you can repop it, which is why it's important to actually have your expert lure bound as opposed to just having it in your bag. When fishing with sticky hold or suction cup alongside expert lures, you should be able to get around 200 encounters per hour or 150 hours per shiny. Now, since you are popping expert lures, there is a small cost, just like single encountering. However, this one is a little bit lower, being around 10 to 12,000 Pokeyen per hour. Since you're getting less encounters per hour, it actually lessens the cost. Notable fishing shinies include things like shiny Whalmer, shiny Relicanth, shiny Phoebus and or Melodic, and also shiny Quillfish. Unfortunately, I do want to say that fishing is probably the weakest shunting method in the game. It's not quite rare enough shinies to be exciting like an egg shiny, but it's also a fair bit slower than single encounters, which makes it feel like a slog. It also just feels more taxing to sit there and click your fishing rod over and over again and to see not even a nibble versus single encounter and running back and forth. If there's any shiny hunting method that I could see getting a small buff in the future, I could probably see fishing getting something. It does have some pretty amazing, unique shinies, though. And next up, we have egg hunting. If you thought that single encountering was a different beast, then egging is the whole damn monster. Egg hunting is honestly the most difficult method to cover in this video because a 5-minute blurb just wouldn't do it justice. So because of that, I will have an in-depth guide linked in the description that really covers egg hunting in depth, and it really needs it. It is a shockingly complex hunting method that will still have you learning quirks about it even thousands of hours later. But Patrouski, what even is egg hunting? How could it be so complicated? Well, at its core, it's not really complicated. You just end up learning a lot of things about it, which once again, I will cover in that more in-depth video in the description. However, egg hunting essentially equates to getting a ton of different rare species, whatever Pokemon you want to hunt. Most people will just get like 400 Charmander, for example. You wouldn't normally do a collage of Pokemon like this. I like doing a collage of Pokemon because it makes it more exciting for me when those Pokemon finally hatch. And then what you have to do after that is buy 30,000 Dittos. Yep, that's right, 30,000 Dittos. And then essentially what you do is you come out to this guy and just breed those Pokemon over and over and over again, and then hatch eggs over and over and over again. Hilariously, egging is also probably the most mechanical thing in PokeMMO. With custom strings, which I'll explain more in a quick sec, it gets pretty ridiculous how many eggs you can make per hour and how the high skill level equates to way more eggs per hour. For example, I would say a beginner player, a beginner egg hunter, should look to reach around 360 eggs per hour, and I kind of average around 400, maybe 420 or so, and there are many players out there that I know of who average 500 plus, 600 plus eggs per hour. Keep in mind, I'm not the best player by any means. I do have 8,500 hours in the game, and I'm still getting absolutely lapped by players who are more mechanically talented. Egg hunting is one of those things where if you really lock in and put in the practice, you can really skillfully and mechanically improve. Well, let's go ahead and get into the numbers. You end up getting around 50 encounters per hour when egg hunting, or technically a shiny every 600 hours, but I'll go into why that number isn't exactly accurate in my personal opinion. First things first, the way that I come to the 50 encounters per hour is because you end up doing batches. Most egg hunting is done in batches. Yes, you can technically just breed five Pokemon at a time and then hatch them all, but the way that most people do it is they get around 10 to 12, maybe even 14, 16 boxes full of Pokemon. Essentially what you'll do is you'll take a species box like this, you'll get rid of half of that, move that over to a different box, and then you would fill this other half with Dittos. And then you would take this, move this row down, and now you have half Dittos, half Pokemon, and then you would go ahead, and I can show you guys really quickly. I don't have any Dittos for this example, so apologies, but you would go ahead and you would withdraw them like this. You would withdraw 2 of these, withdraw 2 Dittos. I can go buy Dittos really quickly off the GTL. You would withdraw these Pokemon, and then you would go ahead and head over to the daycare man and then go ahead and breed them like so. Now, this looks decently fast, right? It's not even close to what you can actually do, which is kind of hilarious. What you would do is you would prep 12 to 14 boxes or so of this before you even start, and then you would do them all within 1 shiny charm while also on donor status. You're aiming for around that 360 to 400 mark. Once again, trying to get as many encounters per hour within 1 hour on shiny charm. You actually don't want to hatch the eggs on the shiny charm, because whether an egg is shiny or not is decided upon egg creation and not upon egg hatch. So you want the charm active when you're making the eggs, and then you throw all of the eggs in the PC to actually hatch them later. It's also important to keep in mind that eggs just hatch via time, so you can go ahead and use a flame body Pokemon, put eggs in your party, and then just kind of chill out once you're hatching eggs. So the time breakdown of eggs usually goes as follows. You spend 1 hour actually making the eggs, and then you have to spend 6 hours hatching them. Yes, it's usually around 6 hours to hatch around 400 eggs or so on average, and then usually you'll spend at least 1 other hour buying all of the Dittos and buying all the Ditto boxes that you may need from other players to actually stock up for your next hunt, for your next batch. So with 1 hour of egging, 6 hours of hatching, and 1 hour of buying Ditto boxes, this ends up being around 8 hours per 400 encounters, which equates to around 50 encounters per hour. So based on all of this math, you will end up with around 600 hours per shiny. But in my personal opinion, with my thousands of hours doing egging and stuff like this, I really do think that there's too many variables. There's way more box sorting. You run out of Pokeyen. You have to find the Ditto box sellers. I think for most players, it usually ends up looking a bit more like 1,000 hours, unless you have tons of Pokeyen to drain and you don't really mind dumping them into something. Now, I keep mentioning cost in Pokeyen and dumping into this hunt, so how expensive is it actually? Well, the average egg hunt will usually cost you around 120 to 150 million Pokeyen per shiny. This is not for the average player. Usually the top 1% of the game are the players that do the egg hunts. The beauty is anybody can really become a 1% player if you put enough time and effort into things. One of the funnier numbers to me about egg hunting is that you'll end up needing to spend, just even on Pokeballs, not even considering the Ditto costs, you end up spending around 6 million Pokeyen just on the Pokeballs to put all of your eggs into. So it's safe to say costs add up pretty quickly. Once again, if you want to attempt egg hunting, I really don't recommend doing it without checking out my guide linked in the description. I promise you, I'm not trying to just shill out another guide of mine. I think it's actually super helpful and a very deep method. And I wouldn't want someone to make massive mistakes when spending so much Pokeyen. Another quick note before we actually go into example shinies is that custom strings are a must for egg hunting. If you aren't using custom strings for egg hunting, you're putting yourself at such a severe disadvantage. I talked about custom strings earlier, but this is where they really come into play, as without custom strings, players used to average around 220 eggs per hour, and that was if you were good at the game. Now, with custom strings, players are able to get around 400 plus encounters per hour. It is quite literally double the pace. Now, examples of edge shinies / rare shinies could include things like Shuckle, could also include things like Rampardos, or it could also include all the different species you saw floating around in my PC. So things like Porygon, Squirtle, Mudkip, all of the starter Pokemon pretty much. Hilariously, Spiritomb, Alola. I think the real fan favorites end up being things like shiny Lucario, all of the shiny starter Pokemon like I mentioned, like Charizard, and then also shiny Beldum / Metagross is one of the #1 most egg hunted Pokemon. Egg hunting truly is the cream of the crop, but it's not meant for every farmer. Next up, let's talk about the big brother to egg hunting, Shalpha Hunting. Like we covered in our vocab lesson, Shalpha equals shiny alpha. If you head over to the GTL and search for shiny and then also turn on the alpha tag, you can see all of these Shalphas, the cheapest one being 33 million Pokeyen to purchase. Shalphas are some of the most unique, amazing, incredibly rare shinies that exist in PokeMMO, and that yellow glow and that tint around all the different shiny Pokemon already really shows them off. As well as alphas have a larger sprite, a follower sprite in the overworld. So if you happen to have it shiny, you get a large, shiny, glowing follower sprite. And you guessed it, because Shalphas are so cool and so amazing, they are also incredibly difficult to hunt and incredibly expensive. The best way to Shalpha hunt is pretty much the exact same thing as egging, except you're buying alpha Pokemon. Instead of buying Dittos, for example, if I have this alpha Chansey, what I would go ahead and go do is I would check Chansey's egg group, which I know is Fairy. I would head over to the GTL. I would look for Fairy, alpha male. Chansey is a female-only species, which honestly makes this a lot easier. This is one of the quote-unquote cheaper alpha Shalpha hunts, and this would be 35k to 40k or so per encounter. You end up getting around the same encounters per hour as egging, as long as you can afford it, of course. So you end up getting around 50 encounters per hour, or technically 600 hours per shiny. But similar to normal rare egg hunting, that 600 hours isn't actually an exact representation of the hours you'll put into this. And now it's time for the real kicker, the average cost of Shalpha hunting. What would it cost you to get one of these yellow glowy boys? Well, on average, it depends on the Shalpha you actually want, which species of Pokemon, because different egg groups have different prices, but it should cost you around simply 1 to 2 billion Pokeyen per hour. 1 to 2 billion Pokeyen per shiny. If rare egg hunting is for the 1%, this is for the 0.00001%. There are so few people that can actually afford to Shalpha hunt in the game. So if you see someone in-game with a glowing shiny alpha follower sprite, make sure to congratulate them on their hard work. Now, I will say one of the cool things about Shalphas is that there are so many different Shalpha Pokemon you can actually hunt for. The Alpha Pokedex is over in your normal Pokedex, so you could actually hunt for Shalpha variants of anything on this list. So you could kind of do two birds with one stone and go for a Shalpha rare, something like an Eevee or a Lucario or a starter, for example. That should cover Shalpha hunting. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the more niche hunts in PokeMMO. Next up, I'm going to quickly try to cover Repel Tricking. This is a pretty niche method that most people don't even probably know about. Repel Tricking generally consists of leading with a Swarm or Arena Trap Pokemon or No Guard, something to increase your encounters by 10%, and then you need your Pokemon to be at a very specific level that depends on the spot that you're attempting to Repel Trick. You see, the way that Repel works is that you will repel all lower level Pokemon. So for example, if you lead with a level 55 Dugtrio here at Dark Grass at Route 12 in Unova, you'll only end up seeing Tranquils, Pincers, and Heracross, since everything else will be level 54 and lower. I can go ahead and show you guys really quick. If I pop a Repel, you'll also just get way less encounters. You can actually watch me run back and forth. Look, in the grass here, way longer than you normally would because it's filtering out all of the other encounters. Repel Tricking can be a very effective way of going for specific rares or semi-rare shinies, but it can also be decently expensive and decently complicated, and there's not that many Repel Trick spots that I'm aware of. I also don't know of a good resource online that really logs and goes over all the Repel Trick spots. If you guys have a recommendation or have any options in the comments, honestly, I'm all open ears and want to learn more and more about Repel Trick spots. Repel tricking being so dependent on the location you're at also makes it very difficult to track any encounters per hour or costs per hour. It's all drastically dependent on the species and location. But I can give you an example of a test video that I did, which should be linked in the description, where I actually tested this spot for 1 hour at Paracross and Pinsir. And I ended up finding out that with my tests that it would end up costing around 15 million Pokeyen in repels and 340 hours on the way to either one shiny Pinsir or Heracross, and you'll also get a few shiny Tranquils on the way. So I calced my math confirming how long it would take you to get a Pinsir or Heracross. At least on average, of course. Some shiny Pokemon that I know are repel trickable include things like Heracross, Pinsir, Scyther, and I believe Absol. Next up is fossil hunting, which is going to take place over here for the most part in Oreburgh City. This is actually the fastest place to fossil shunt within PokeMMO, and essentially what you want to do is fly over to a PC, buy up as many fossils as possible, and then we'll go pop them in a quick sec. I do want to say that with fossils, there's only so many fossils that come into the game over a period of time, so if you want to go for a fossil shiny, you're going to end up having to slowly buy fossils for months at a time. This is not something you can decide to go do one day. You really have to prepare long term. But since fossil hunting is so unique, I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like. You want to start here in Oreburgh City, you want to have some fossils in your inventory, and you want to run over to the mining museum right over here. I did also include a 5th gen fossil because that's important to talk about. Cover fossils and plume fossils. The 2 5th gen fossils can actually not be popped in the 4th gen mining museum. You'll have to go to the 5th generation in Unova for that, and they are much slower. I don't really recommend fossil hunting the Gen 5 Pokemon. They are much slower. I'll show you how fast with custom strings you can actually pop some of these fossils though. Things can actually get pretty quick. It ends up being a bit more encounters per hour than egging, usually ending up being around 400 to 450 or so encounters per hour. Once again, depending on how efficient you are, you'll come over here, you'll pop 5 fossils, you'll run out of the museum, you'll teleport back over to the PC, and you'll just pop these fossil Pokemon into your PC and then head back and pop more fossils. You usually want to do this as quickly as possible while on dinner status and while on a shiny charm. Fossil hunting emulates pretty closely to egg hunting in terms of encounters per hour and cost. However, there's differences in difficulties between fossil hunting, like having to prepare way ahead of time is decently different than egg hunting, but you also have to deal with all of these fossil Pokemon. When egg hunting, you really just have to buy 30,000 more Dittos since they're consumed, but you keep your species Pokemon. There's not as much mess to clean up. But with fossil Pokemon, you either have to sell off and list all of your fossil Pokemon individually or just release them and cut your losses. Still, you don't have to wait 6 hours to actually wait for all your fossils to hatch. They're just popped instantaneously, so fossil hunting does end up being much quicker than egg hunting on average for a shiny. If we're working with the math that you're doing 30,000 encounters on average for the shiny, you go ahead and take this number and divide this by 420, which I think is an encounter number per hour that is much easily more obtained via fossils versus eggs. You end up with only 71 hours per shiny. That's actually pretty amazing. However, once again, fossils are very expensive, and they're also decently far and few in between. As you can see, there's only around 20 or so fossils on this first page. If you keep scrolling, maybe 30, 40, 50, 60, let's say best case scenario, there's 2,000 fossils on the market. That only equates, if you're doing 420 encounters per hour, that's only 4.7 hours of fossil hunting before the entire market is bought up, which once again leads to the long-term preparation argument. Now, if you're fossil hunting and just releasing all of your Pokeyen, it's also going to cost you a lot more. You probably end up spending around 8,000 Pokeyen per fossil. Obviously, these are a bit cheaper right now, but once you start buying up the market, they get more expensive. This can depend on how much patience you have. Pricing fossils can be very difficult, like in terms of how expensive a full shunt is, because it depends if you're going to just release the Pokemon. It depends how lucky you get on 2x31s and 3x31s. You can get good IV ones and then sell those for profit. So sometimes you can break even, but in general, you're going to lose a lot of Pokeyen along the way. If you just buy 30,000 fossils for 8k Pokeyen a piece, you're going to end up, and just release them, you're going to end up costing yourself 240 million Pokeyen on the way to a fossil shiny. The general rule of thumb, obviously it's all very variable, the general rule of thumb is that fossil shunting is much faster, but also much more expensive than egg hunting. And you're also limited more to the pool of Pokemon you can actually get via fossil hunting. Obviously, you can only actually fossil shunt fossil Pokemon. And then finally, the last quote-unquote hunting method that I want to cover in this video is going to be mysterious balls. There are a couple different mysterious balls in PokeMMO. There are mysterious Pokeballs, mysterious Great Balls, mysterious Ultra Balls, mysterious Cherish Balls, and mysterious Premier Balls. This is probably the most controversial type of shiny hunting method within PokeMMO because it is the only way to pay to win to a shiny, which I think is very unfortunate, but what are you going to do? It's already in the game. Mysterious Pokeballs lower your shiny rate to a 1 out of 8,000 base chance. Great Balls lower it to a 1 out of 4,000 base chance. And Ultra Balls can lower it all the way down to a 1 out of 2,500 base chance. These can also be influenced by Shiny Charm and Donor status, bringing Mysterious Ultra Balls down to a 1 out of 1,900-ish shiny rate. The original shiny rate is supposed to be 1 out of 30k. Bringing it all the way down to 1900 is absurd. You can also end up popping around 1000 to 1200 mysterious Pokeballs per hour or mysterious balls per hour if you have the Pokeyen for them. They are kind of ludicrously expensive, which is where the credit card swiping comes into play, which I personally think is super lame. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying a few mysterious balls for a bit of fun, and I feel like that's the intended mechanic. Just having some on hand to pop if you're having a rough day, to go ahead and gamble away some of your Pokeyen, it's not the worst thing in the world. You're kind of just paying for entertainment. But taking mom's credit card and swiping a few grand in the hope that you'll open some sort of rare shiny is a little rough and saddening when you can cut down something like a shiny Eevee or a shiny Chansey or a shiny Sheldon, which you can get in these balls, and then go ahead and get one of those shinies within a few hours. When mysterious balls were added to PokeMMO, they took the fastest shiny hunt from around 24 hours on average all the way down to 1.5. If it's not obvious, I am not a fan of these little buggers. But they're still technically a method, and it's important to give you guys as much information as possible. Mysterious Premier Balls only lower your rate to 1 out of 4k, but they always give you Alpha Pokemon, which is a way to shiny hunt for Shalphas via Mysterious Balls, but they're also excruciatingly expensive to match that premiumness of being Premier Balls. I think they usually go for around 800k or so a piece, but once again, it's going to depend at the time of which you buy them. Keep an eye out for these Mysterious Ball 2022s. I recommend avoiding them. They don't actually have the lowered shiny rate like these ones do, so these are kind of a trap that certain players will buy on accident. I do not recommend purchasing these. But for the sake of science, I'll go ahead and show you guys what one looks like. You'll basically get a flash animation across your screen, and a Pokemon will appear in your party or in your PC. They'll also often have hidden ability access and sometimes have some IVs like so. I will say one of the cool things about Mysterious Balls is that little icon that flashes across the screen. If it's shiny, it will have the shiny sprite. So you'll see the shiny sprite flash across your screen, which is pretty exciting and makes for some cool moments. And that brings us to the end of the video. Wow, you guys made it. Congratulations. Hopefully you learned a lot about shiny hunting. I had around 99% of this video scripted, but I didn't exactly do an outro. So I guess all I can say is that I hope you guys found this video helpful. I hope it was additive to your PokeMMO experience, and I hope you learned something, laughed a little, and maybe were even entertained in the background. Go ahead and like this video if it was helpful to you. It really means the world to me and is the quickest way to help out those content creators that you do actually enjoy. I never liked YouTube videos before becoming a content creator myself, and then I realized how important it is, and now I try to click the like button on every single YouTube video that I enjoy. Dislike if you didn't enjoy it or did not find it helpful. That's also super important to encourage. I want your genuine feedback. If you want to watch PokeMMO videos every single day, I upload every single day, as well as streaming Monday through Friday on Twitch. I have a Discord linked in the description if you want to join a very cool community with a lot of very cool people. And if you want to go above and beyond, if this content really helped you enough, subscribing to my channel and supporting it financially via YouTube memberships, Twitch Primes, Twitch subs, and PayPal/Venmo donations really are what allowed me to be here. I wouldn't have the time to make content like this if I wasn't able to pay my rent, pay my bills, and eat food. So thank you all so very much for that. And to end this off, I wish you guys the best of luck. I hope that everybody goes incredibly wet on their shiny hunts. I hope you get super lucky, and I hope you enjoy the journey, because that's what shunting is all about. Have a fantastic day. Hey, what's up? Patrouski here, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching until the very end of the video. That means the world to me, and if your name is listed here, that means you went above and beyond and supported the channel financially, which allows me to even be here and have the time to do this. So thank you so very much.